Hello, this video will go through the Year 10 linear test from 2017. A lot of this can be done by hand, but also on your calculator. So I will quickly go through it. Most of it I won't do with the calculator because with this test, if a question was worth more than 1 mark, you had to show working. So I'm going to show the working. Hopefully you know how to do it on the calculator anyway. Okay. All right, so the first question, simplify the following algebraic expressions. So the first one, we have two separate like terms. So we have 3a and negative 2a. So 3a minus 2a gives you a, and then we've just got plus 2ab. Okay, nice, easy one to start off with. The second one, we expand the bracket. So 3t times t gives you 3t squared. And then 3t minus 4 gives you minus 12t. So just make sure you do both, because often students will forget the second term inside the brackets. All right, question C, bring the x's together. So 3x minus 2x gives you x, and then 6y minus 10y gives you negative 4y. All right, question D is worth 2 marks. So for this one, you actually had to show a bit of working. So obviously expanding the bracket. So 3 times 2m is 6m. Then 3 times 4 is 12. And let's expand the second bracket. Negative 5 times 3m is negative 5m. And then minus 30. And then we've got to bring the like terms together. So 6m minus 15m is negative 9m, and 12 minus 30 is negative 18. You didn't have to factorise that by taking out the common factor. We're just simplifying it like that. But if you did factorise it, and I would also accept both answers, take out negative 9 as a common factor, and then you have m plus 2. Okay, let's move on. Okay, question E, I'll just quickly do. So this one's a little bit trickier. When we're dividing fractions, we change the division sign into a multiplication and we flip the second fraction. Now you should see that these 3's will cancel out and you're just left with 2x plus 4 over 2. And this is the same. You don't have to write this. I'm just letting you see how we get the final answer. So 2x on 2, the 2's cancel out, and then 4 divided by 2 is 2. So we're left with just x plus 2 as your final answer. Now, if you couldn't do that by hand, if you did it on your CADS calculator and got x plus 2, you would still get 1 mark, which is good, better than 0 marks. All right, question 2. Solve for the unknown in the following equation. So the first two, see how they're only worth 1 mark. So if you didn't know how to do these and you did them on CADS, you still would have got 1 mark. The reason they're worth 1 mark is because a lot of people can just look at that and see what the answer is, but let's solve it by hand. So get rid of that 2, add 2 to both sides, and then 8 plus 2, oops. Did you notice the mistake I made? I just did. I should have taken away 2. That's better, 2 minus 2. So negative 3x. I knew that side had to be 6. It's a good thing I've got the answers right next to me. Okay, so now we need to get rid of that negative 3. And x equals negative 2. Now to check your final answer, you could use CADS calculator or you could just substitute it into there. So if we had 2 minus 3 times negative 2, that gives you 2 plus 6 is 8. So I know it's correct. B, okay, you can expand the bracket, but if this number here in front of the bracket is a factor of this number, which it is, then we can just divide both sides by 5. Okay, there's nothing wrong with expanding the bracket, it'll just take you longer. Okay, and then take away 4 from both sides. So that means x equals 3. See how I'm putting a box, oh, it's a big box around my answers. That's a good habit to get into, especially moving into VCE where you'll have a lot of working out. And the square just tells the person marking your work where your answer is. Because even though I've kind of done it sequential, so you can see where I'm going, just from experience, students write all over the page and their answer could actually be like up in the top right corner. And it just makes it easier if you point or put a square or highlight it. Anyway, let's move on. Question C is worth 2 marks. So if we're getting rid of this 3, we're multiplying both sides by 3. So let's just assume I've done that. Times by 3. And getting rid of this 5, we multiply both sides by 5. So you could do that in one go, or you could do it in 2 goes. Doesn't matter, but hopefully by now you understand what I've just done. Okay, so I've got rid of the denominators in one line. Okay, I would expand because we can't do any cancelling out with those numbers. So we have 5x plus 5 on the left-hand side, and then, oops, 6x minus 3 on the right-hand side. Now, sometimes I like the variable, so in this case, x on the left-hand side, but if I bring that 6x over, it's going to be minus x, so I'm going to just bring the 5x over. So I'm going to take away 5x from both sides. That doesn't really look like a 5, but anyway. So we're left with 5 equals 6x minus 5x, which is x minus 3, and then add 3 to both sides. Now that last step I just did, you could have done that in one go as well. So x equals 8. If you couldn't do that one by hand, you could have done it easily with the CAS calculator using Solve and got 1 mark at least. Okay, let's move on to question 3. So this time we've got inequations, starting with starting with an easy one. So divide both sides by 5. The inequality sign doesn't change direction because we're not multiplying, or we're not dividing by a negative number, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, you could have done that on the CAS calculator using Solve. B is worth 2 marks, a bit more involved in this one, so I'm going to take away 2 from both sides first. Okay, so take away that 2 and then 4 minus 2 gives you 2. You can in one go multiply both sides by negative 3, but I'm just going to multiply it by 3, so that gets rid of that 3. And then I'm going to make the other side a negative. So notice my inequality sign changes direction. So for this one being worth 2 marks, obviously if you got the final answer, which I'll put a square around, you get full marks. But if you got this and then you had the inequality sign around the wrong, if you had this and you had the inequality sign around the wrong way, you would probably only get 1 mark. Okay, let's move on. All right, so this time drawing the inequations on a number line. I'm just going to try it's a bit better. Okay, so first one, 1 mark. It's a nice simple one. We're just dealing with a number -2. So remember I've taught you just to write the number and then we're going down, and you don't have to write them all. Okay, as long as, you know, people know what you're doing. All right, this inequality is a closed circle, so we do that at -2. And we want the number to be bigger than -2, so it's going in that direction. Okay, question B is worth 2 marks because you have to solve this. So if we divide both sides by -3, we get x is greater than -3. Okay, so 9 divided by -3 is -3. Just put -3 down. I don't mind if you just put 3 numbers down. You don't have to label each point on the scale. This is an open circle, so I'll do an open circle at -3. Oops, I'm looking at this one. So x has to be greater than -3, so in that direction again. All right, this one here, we've got x's between 2 numbers, so I've got to make sure I fit 2 and 8. So I'm just going to do the whole scale. It's a real test of my ability to write. Okay, So we want 2, and it's an open circle at 2, and then a closed circle at 8. Doesn't look like an 8, does it? So 5, there we go, got a bit better. Okay, and X is in between them. Okay, not very straight line, but you get the idea. Moving on. Question 5. Now, question 5 is quite a simple question. Basically, making sure you understand these 3 things and then how to put them in an equation. Now, this is a simple graph. To get the gradient, you should be able to, first of all, realize it's a negative line. So we're going to have a negative gradient. How much have we gone down by? It's 6 and across 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So your gradient is -3. You could have used 2 points on the line if you wanted to. That's a long way to go about it. The x-intercept is 2. The y-intercept is 6. And just putting it all into the equation. So y equals -3x plus 6. Okay, so that should have been an easy 4 marks. I haven't marked the test yet, so it'd be interesting to see whether it was actually as easy as I thought it was. All right, question 6. Write down the equation of the following graph. So this one here, we can find the gradient just by looking at it. How much of it's a positive gradient, so we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4, and across 1, 2. So your gradient m is 4/2, which is 2. And your y-intercept, now we can't really see that now, can we? So I'm just going to rub this out so you can now see it. Okay, is going through -4, so C equals -4. So your equation is y equals 2x minus 4. All right, moving on to question 7. Question 7 is a little bit harder because we don't have any grid lines or scales on there. So it's basically meaning you need to be able to find the gradient and the y-intercept given 2 points. So these are our 2 points here, 2, 8 and -3, -7. So your gradient is the difference in your y. So we got 8 minus -7 over 2 minus -3. So that's 15/5, which is 3. Now you should just check that that's positive. It's a positive line. If you had a negative answer, you know you've made a mistake. All right, so to find your equation, because we can't see where it actually passes the axes, we got to use y equals mx plus c. Now, m we found out was 3. X and y, you can use either 2, 8 or -3, -7. Now, I'm not a big fan of negative numbers. They tend to cause issues, so I'm going to be using 2, 8. So y equals 8. So notice I put in 8 there. Your gradient was 3. This point here has x is 2 plus c. And then we're just working out what c is. Okay, so c is equal to 2. So I have my y-intercept. I have my gradient here. So it's just a matter of plugging them into y equals mx plus c. So y equals 3x plus 2. All right, question 9, sketch the graph. So we have 5x minus 4y equals 20. You could rearrange this into the form y equals mx plus c. I do think when it's in intercept form, so this is intercept form, that it is actually easier just to use the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So your x-intercept, remember we let y equal 0. So that means we have 5x, no y component, so it's just 5x equals 20, x equals 4. So there's my x-intercept. And then for the y-intercept, let x equal 0. And we have -4y equals 20, so y equals -5. Now, if you solve this and got it in the form y equals mx plus c, you would know your gradient would be 5/4, which might be a bit difficult. Now, let's see if I can draw my straight line without zooming in like I did the other day. Okay. Beautiful. So we want to go through these 2 points. I should actually go a bit longer. Whoops. Just do. Ah, God, it's not even straight. Should be straight. And, oh, actually, can I undo that? Remember, we should have arrows. So we should really have arrows going through them. And arrow going this way as well. All right, it says label your axis intercept. So really we should, I wonder if this is going to let me draw, it's going to draw a straight line. This is 4, 0, and this is, oops, 0, -5. But if I can clearly see that it's passing those points, then if you haven't put those points on, that's fine. I can see what you're doing. Okay, let's move back. There we go. Go on to the next question. All right, a line is drawn between the points, blah, blah, blah. Find the exact distance between the 2 points. All right, I'm not going to write down the formula because I don't have all night and you're probably getting sick of me talking. So difference in our x's, so 4 minus -2 squared. And then the difference in our y's. Make sure you keep the order correct. It doesn't matter which one you do first as long as you're consistent. And then we take the square root of that. Okay, then I should really have distance. All right, 4 minus -2 is 6. So we have 6 squared, and look at how I'm using brackets. And that's because this one here, we have -3 squared. Now, hopefully you remember, 6 squared is 36. But when you square a negative number, you get a positive answer. And 36 plus 9 is 45. You leave that as an exact value. You don't have to do it as a decimal. If you've done it as a decimal, that means I have to go and check it. But it's fine if you did do it as a decimal. I don't mind. I don't think you can simplify. Oh, yes, you can simplify that as a surd. Just for those of you who are in the class who have been doing surds, this I think becomes 3 root 5. That's a good test of my memory of surds too, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 root 5. All right, find the midpoint between the 2 points. So we add our x's together. Again, it doesn't matter which one comes first. 1 minus 2 over 2. So we have -2 plus 4 is 2, so 2 on 2 is 1. And 1 minus 2 is negative, so that's a -1/2. Okay, so there's your midpoint between the 2 points. Okay, so question 9, just straightforward formula stuff. Okay, so hopefully you, as a cohort, did quite well. All right, question 10, write down the equation that is parallel to the x-axis and passes through the point 3, -4. I think this may have stumped a few of you, parallel to the x-axis. So when you think about your x-axis, there's our x-axis there. If it's parallel, let's just say this was the line here. Actually, it's going to be down here. Okay, there's your line passing through. Here's -4, here's 3. So there's the point 3, -4. A line that is parallel to the x-axis is just a y equals line. Y equals. There is no x component because it doesn't have a gradient. So if we are doing this line, this is 3, -4. This y-intercept is -4. Basically, any y coordinate along here is -4. So it's just y equals -4. Quite a tricky one, but it's only worth 1 mark. So well done if you got it right, but if you're a bit confused, it's only 1 mark. But still, this stuff comes up. Even in further, it comes up, and you need to understand what it means by the x-axis, if it's parallel to the x-axis or parallel to the y-axis. All right, question 11, find the equation that is perpendicular to y equals -2x plus 5. So after the multiple choice test, hopefully those of you who got the question wrong with perpendicular, that you now realize that the gradient of a line perpendicular is we change the sign, so this one's going to be positive, and then we flip it. So the gradient of this new line is 1/2, and it's passing through the point 3, 2. And it's just a matter of substituting it into y equals mx plus c. So in this case, y is 2. Your gradient is a half. X is 3. We have c. We're going to get a fraction here. And that fraction just also happens to be a half. So you will get y equals a half. Oh, handwriting's a bit sloppy. Plus a half. I don't think anyone is going to write it any other way. You could have 2y equals x plus 1. I don't think anyone's going to do that. I think if you did this question, you had it as this. Or if you had 0.5, that's fine as well. I don't mind because it is the same thing. Okay, let's move on. Last question. Woo. Okay, so this one here, it's worth 2 marks. If you just used your CAS calculator and you got it right, you got 1 mark. If you tried doing it by hand and then you checked it using CAS and you wrote the CAS answer, you still get your mark. And maybe I'd be kind of give you half a mark for doing some working out. All right, so this one here, you would use the substitution method to solve. So we have y equals, so that means this part here, we would substitute in for this y. So in the second equation, we have, why am I writing so big? Plus 2. And then instead of writing y, I write in what y was equal to. 2x minus 8 equals 19. So we have 3x plus 4x minus 16. Don't forget to do both of them. Okay, equals 19. This isn't actually a difficult one, which is nice. Okay, I'm going to take that 16 over as well because yeah, I don't really want to be on here all night. So x equals 5. Remember, we put a square around it just because it's going to be a lot of working out. So once I found x, I just substitute it. Now I can substitute it into either of these two equations, but because the first one is already in the form y equals, I just substitute it into that one. I didn't need to put a bracket in, but I did. I got a habit of, whenever I do substitution, of using brackets, because if it's a negative number, just make sure you don't make any errors. So 2 times 5 is 10. I didn't really need to do that. And y equals 2. Okay, so our point, if you wrote it as a set of coordinates, that's fine as well. 5, 2. All right, so I hope you did okay on your test. If you haven't watched this, if you're watching this before your extended response test, but I don't think you will be because it's tomorrow. But I hope you did well, and all the best. Bye-bye.